Alright, wanted to do a quick video on some lightning shock testing I've been doing for the upcoming league start with Lightning Conduit. Uh, Basically just looking through different skills that could be used with Lightning Conduit and which are actually going to be the best contenders for specifically clearing. For getting lots of enemies shocked so you can press Conduit and blow them all up. Obviously for single target, I think it's pretty well established that Stormbrand or Orb of Storms are going to be the go-tos. They work really well, or they should work really well, and either one will be really solid. So the initial question was, how will they do for clear? And I'm going to do a lot of Blood Aqueducts runs here. I think it shows pretty well on the skills. But the first thing you're going to see is, unfortunately, Stormbrand and Orb of Storms, they ain't great. Like, Stormbrand's okay, right? But then there's a straggler in the back that didn't get shocked. We don't want stragglers. We want to see the whole pack get shocked here. Stormbrand's okay. You saw that one in the back took a little bit. The problem is that this is currently linked to... Everything's linked to Ellie Prolif because I don't have another source of it. This level 1, which I think is about the same Prolif radius as the Glove Implicit that you would want to get. And then Unbound Ailments isn't really needed for testing, but you'd have it eventually. And then I have Chain. But Stormbrand and Orb of Storms, their chains don't really try to chain far away from the initial target. You can see right there, it took a really long time for those mobs right above the one I cast it on to get shocked. And then same thing there. So, unfortunately, not going to be great for clear. And then Orb of Storms is more or less the same thing. You can see that mob eventually got shocked in the back, but takes a while. And then here, like, it's not what you want. You want stuff to get shocked as soon as you cast. Worst case scenario, you'll just have like an unlinked Stormbrand or Orb of Storms or something for your single target. But I don't think you're using either of them as your main clear enablers. So, what does work? So, first thing I tried was Arc. And it's okay. It's not fantastic. You can see it'll usually get like an entire pack, but it doesn't get anything past it if there's another pack nearby, like that. Same kind of situation of the arcs don't really try to go super far away with the chain. So you really would want to get all of these mobs ideally in like a single cast. Right. But here comes the first actual contender for a proper bit of long-range shocking, and that's exsanguinate, which is functionally very similar to Arc, but it actually just like stretches really far out. And you can see, if I can find another big pack, it'll really show it off, but right like that, it hit those and it made it all the way to some of these at the shrine as well. It does a much better job at chaining really far. Like, we're hitting stuff off screen now. And this is a level 1 exsanguinate, so I don't kill stuff. It actually gets more tendrils at higher level, and there's an alt quality for even more tendrils to help with the coverage even further. So that's the number 1 chain-related contender for applying many shocks. Exsanguinate, very solid. And then next up was some AoE skills. I'm gonna give these their best possibility here and put increased AoE in. Take out Unbound Ailments. You wouldn't take this out with the actual setup, but I'd have probably a proper 4 blue 4 link. Or I wouldn't need Ellie Prolif, I guess. But give them some AoE. So you can see I now have 109 AoE. That's from the AoE gem and from Elementalist. No other AoE actually anywhere. But first one is Divine Ire, which isn't great. It's like not bad. The problem with Divine Ire is if I had more cast speed, it would be a little bit better. If you don't hold the button down long enough, you don't get the beam. And so like fine tuning for that's a little bit awkward, but you can see like it works fine. But it's not doing anything that exsanguinate wasn't able to do, kind of just better. Would be, I guess, the concern with it. But it's not bad, and it gives you a cool looking shock, so you know, style points, I guess. Next is Crackling Lance, which I didn't think was going to be any good, but it's actually not bad at all. It's basically very, very close to exsanguinate. You can see it gets some off-screen. It's probably a little bit worse overall, but it being a blue gem does give it some value because it would mean easier gem swapping. If you end up using exsanguinate to map with and it's a red socket gem and you don't have like a white socket on your item, and then you want to switch to Orb of Storms or Stormbrand for bosses, that's going to be a pain. So Crackling Lance is actually pretty good. However, big contender number 2, which I didn't think was going to be very good at all, HYDROSPHERE. Actually kind of insane. The AoE pulses initially are really big, and that first cast might not look impressive, but then once you get these like subsequent casts, like it dashes through, it just gets everything. And you can trigger the pulses just by like shield charging or flame dashing through it, which you're going to probably be doing a lot of the time anyway. So you can see like I move it forward and then I'm shield charging forward as well because I presumably just killed that pack. And then when I move it to this next pack, it's still pulsing from that shield charge. So it's getting like extra hits in to make sure everything gets absolutely shocked. And it's really solid. This is probably the front runner of these ones so far, and the other big thing of HYDROSPHERE is it gives you a source of exposure for lightning exposure for your elementalist ascendancy point. So I think early on, at least prior to getting influenced implicit gloves where you get lightning exposure on hit, at least up until then I think HYDROSPHERE is the one to use. Because getting the exposure value is massive on elementalist. You get an extra minus 25 res and some mana regen. Like, you need that anyway, and it's actually really freaking good. And the fact that it pulses, you could potentially use it for a single target, or at least for tanky rares or something. Like a Rogue Exiles got really buffed. Anything that's like taking a few casts, all these other skills, you'd have to keep recasting the skill in between Conduit. If you just get a little bit of pulse off on the HYDROSPHERE, you will get some... It's not going to pulse as fast as you can cast, but you're getting some free pulses where you don't have to constantly recast it, which is awesome. But then another option was, well, just use the movement skills. And I think I have... Do I still have them linked up? I have a flamedash linked to LA Prolif, and I have my shield charge linked to LA Prolif. Just use your movement skills and then cast behind you, which is kind of awkward. But shield charge actually works decently well. I don't know if the accuracy chance to hit would scale up well enough into higher tier stuff without having accuracy. But you can see there's like a few stragglers sometimes in terms of mobs that just don't quite get shocked. Maybe if you had a lot of AoE to get the prolifs out further and the shield charge out further. There's like some potential there, but it's just a little bit lacking, I think, and then flame dash is pretty much the same. You can see like some mobs on the edges just aren't going to get hit. But worth considering and keeping in mind, maybe some like highly clear speed focused conduit setup could make it work. And then one more, the final one, the most interesting one, I think, and kind of has the highest potential overall of AoE coverage. Kinetic Blast. Now the thing with Kinetic Blast, you have to use a wand, obviously. Singularity Unique Scepter is going to actually be really good for Lightning Conduit early on as an early unique if you can find it, which would rule this out, but nonetheless, it's kind of hard to match this ability in terms of just being able to hit tons of enemies. Like, it's basically hitting every single thing on screen and off screen. This Poet's Pen's got a decently fast attack speed, I think. An Imbued Wand's not very far behind, though. And I don't really have any scaling yet, but like the attack speed doesn't feel bad. And yeah, like it just shocks everything. If all you care about is getting the most enemies shocked with the least total, or with a single ability, I guess, Kinetic Blast is just gonna win. So, yeah, that kind of wraps up what I've found. I think Exsanguinate, very good. HYDROSPHERE is absolutely amazing. Just exceeded expectations so much, and for early game is going to be irreplaceable because of lightning exposure. And then Kinetic Blast is a really interesting one as well. One more thing I'm going to do, I've only done testing in Blood Aqueducts. I actually haven't done an open area map. This is going to be the first time I'm seeing this as well. I'm going to pop into the cemetery map and just run around and see if my mind changes on an open layout. I mean, Kinetic Blast should be plenty fine still. Yeah. I mean, it's just hitting everything, so not really surprised there. Let me see if I can really quickly switch it on. Kind of grouping the mobs up too much. Let me go to the hideout so I don't screw this up too much. We'll do HYDROSPHERE again. HYDROSPHERE doesn't need those supports. We'll put the AoE in. Yeah, it's still pretty good. HYDROSPHERE is definitely best benefited on more narrow maps. Something like an atoll map, which actually is probably going to be a really popular map to run this league anyway. It's not quite as nice as something kind of projectile chain related will be on these huge open areas. But still decent, still solid. Still definitely should be plenty good enough. And then Exsanguinate, I think we will see, should do just fine as well in a big open area because of the chaining nature of it. I'm getting stunned. I'm slowed. It's actually not hitting. I think this might be due to lack of enough tendrils. Exsanguinate actually falling off a bit more than I would have expected, to be honest. Usually does a better job at reaching out further. Okay, so Exsanguinate might be, if you're doing open areas or high density, might not be as promising until you get some higher level stuff, like with Awakened Chain, and then with like an alternate quality Exsanguinate. I think max level alt quality Exsanguinate is 11 targets. This is 7 right now. And then you'd get an extra chain. But actually, kind of surprised by Exsanguinate. I thought it would be better in the open area map. Huh. Either way, TLong didn't watch, even though I'm at the end of the video and you watched. HYDROSPHERE is definitely the way to go to begin with for clearing, I think. And then other ones worthy of mention would be Exsanguinate and Kinetic Blast for the most part. And Crackling Lance. Actually, I'm going to try Crackling Lance in the map as well, since Exsanguinate didn't do so hot. This Crackling Lance I don't think has like any target limit stuff. I think it's just purely an AoE skill because it doesn't have a chain. Yeah, so you can see it's less hindered by there being more enemies, so once you get to this scenario, it's actually doing better than the Exsanguinate was. You know what? Honorable mention to Crackling Lance as well. And nobody uses his skill. It deserves to get some love. Yeah. GG, use HYDROSPHERE. Thanks for watching!